Mark Wilson clutched the crumpled invitation in his trembling hand, staring at the elegant gold lettering that seemed to mock his worn-out jeans and second-hand jacket. The exclusive New Year's Eve party at Horizon Enterprises headquarters was the last place a struggling single father like him belonged. But turning down his new boss, the notoriously demanding CEO Victoria Hayes, wasn't an option if he wanted to keep the job he'd miraculously landed just 3 weeks ago. "Daddy, are we having mac and cheese again?" 7-year-old Emma's voice pulled him back to their tiny apartment kitchen, where she sat coloring at their wobbly table. Mark forced a smile. "Not tonight, princess. We've got..." His voice caught as he realized he hadn't even figured out childcare for the party. And what bombshell was Victoria planning to drop on him there? The office rumors about massive layoffs had been swirling for days. Little did Mark know, this night would change everything, and the secret Victoria was keeping would leave him speechless. The Horizon Enterprises building gleamed like a crystal fortress against the December sky. Mark adjusted his only tie, the same one he'd worn to his wife Sarah's funeral 3 years ago, and checked his phone again. His elderly neighbor Mrs. Patel had agreed to watch Emma, but he'd already called twice to make sure everything was okay. "Mr. Wilson, welcome." The security guard nodded, checking his name against the guest list. "Ms. Hayes mentioned you specifically." Mark's stomach tightened. Why would the CEO single him out? He'd only been working in the accounting department for 3 weeks, brought on for year-end reconciliations. He was supposed to be invisible. The elevator climbed to the top floor, each floor bringing him closer to whatever fate Victoria Hayes had planned. The doors opened to reveal a winter wonderland of silver and blue decorations, champagne flowing freely, and executives in designer clothes mingling under crystal chandeliers. Mark stood frozen until a familiar voice cut through his panic. "You came." Victoria Hayes appeared beside him, radiant in a midnight blue gown that matched her eyes. At 42, she commanded the room with the confidence that had built Horizon from nothing into a tech empire. "I was worried you might find an excuse." "Ms. Hayes, Victoria, please. We're not in the office." She handed him a flute of champagne. "Come with me. There's someone I want you to meet." As she led him through the crowd, Mark noticed how other executives watched them with curious eyes. What game was she playing? And why did his heart race every time her hand brushed against his arm? An hour later, Mark stood on the rooftop terrace, the city lights spread below like fallen stars. Victoria had introduced him to every board member, major investor, and executive, speaking about his work as if he were a valued senior manager rather than temporary help. "You seem confused," Victoria said, joining him at the railing. "I don't understand why I'm here," Mark admitted. "I'm just a number cruncher brought in for the holiday rush." Victoria's expression softened. "That's what you think?" "Mark, I've reviewed every report you've submitted. You found accounting discrepancies that our senior team missed for months. You streamlined processes that were costing us thousands." Mark stared at her. "You noticed that?" "I notice everything about my company." She paused, looking out at the city. "And about the people who could help it grow." The countdown to midnight began inside. 10, 9, 8. Victoria turned to face him fully. "Mark, I didn't just invite you here for your accounting skills." 7, 6, 5. "The truth is, I know about Emma. About your struggles since Sarah died." 4, 3. Mark's breath caught. How could she possibly know? 2, 1. "Happy New Year." As cheers erupted around them, Victoria leaned closer. "I want to offer you something that might change both your lives." The next morning, Emma bounced excitedly on Mark's bed. "Daddy! Did you see the snow? Can we build a snowman?" Mark rubbed his eyes, the events of last night still feeling like a dream. Victoria's words echoed in his mind, "I'm offering you the position of Chief Financial Officer, Mark. With a salary that will ensure Emma never has to worry again. When he'd asked why him, a widowed father with mounting debts and a resume gap from the years he'd scaled back to care for Sarah during her illness, Victoria's answer had stunned him. Because I was raised by a single father who worked 3 jobs and still found time to read me bedtime stories. Because I recognize talent and dedication when I see it. And because this company needs people who understand that life is about more than profit margins. Daddy? Are you listening? Emma tugged his sleeve. Sorry, princess. Yes, we can build a snowman. But first. He reached for his phone, seeing a text from Victoria, dinner tonight? I'd love to meet Emma. Mark's finger hovered over the screen. Could he really trust this sudden change in fortune? What if Victoria had ulterior motives? The rumors about her Ice Queen reputation weren't exactly encouraging. Victoria arrived at their apartment building that evening, looking surprisingly casual in jeans and a sweater, carrying a gift-wrapped package. You live here? She asked, eyeing the peeling paint in the hallway. Mark's defenses rose immediately. Not all of us can afford penthouses. To his surprise, Victoria laughed. I grew up in a place much worse than this. My father would have called this luxury. Emma peeked from behind Mark's legs, studying the visitor with curious eyes. Victoria knelt down. You must be Emma. Your dad talks about you all the time. He does. Emma looked up at Mark with surprise. He sure does. He says you're the bravest, smartest girl he knows. Victoria offered the package. I heard you like space. Emma's eyes widened as she unwrapped a professional-grade telescope. Wow! Daddy, look! As Emma examined her gift, Victoria whispered to Mark, the stars helped me dream bigger when I was her age. Every child deserves that chance. Over pizza, Victoria insisted on ordering from the local place rather than the gourmet restaurant she'd initially suggested. Mark watched in amazement as the formidable CEO built rapport with his daughter, discussing constellations and asking about Emma's science projects. Later, after Emma had fallen asleep clutching her new astronomy book, Victoria and Mark sat on his worn couch, talking until midnight. Why are you really doing this? Mark finally asked. The job offer, this visit, there must be dozens of more qualified candidates. Victoria was quiet for a long moment. 20 years ago, I was where you are now. Struggling, overlooked, trying to prove myself. Someone took a chance on me. She met his eyes. Sometimes people just need one person to believe in them. And you believe in me? Mark's voice was barely audible. I do. Victoria's hand found his. The question is, do you believe in yourself enough to accept help? To let someone else into your world? The warmth of her hand sent electricity through him, a feeling he hadn't experienced since Sarah. Guilt immediately followed. Was he betraying his wife's memory? As if reading his thoughts, Victoria said softly, Sarah would want you both to be happy, Mark. To thrive, not just survive. Mark pulled his hand away. How could you possibly know what Sarah would want? Victoria's expression changed, revealing vulnerability he'd never expected to see. Because I knew her. The revelation hit Mark like a physical blow. Victoria explained how she and Sarah had attended the same business school years ago, had been friends before life took them in different directions. How Sarah had reached out to her just before she died, asking Victoria to keep an eye on her family if she could. I lost track after the funeral, Victoria admitted. Built my company, got caught up in success. Then 3 weeks ago, your resume crossed my desk, and I knew it was time to fulfill my promise. Mark sat in stunned silence, memories and emotions colliding. Why didn't you tell me immediately? Would you have accepted help if you knew? Or would pride have made you walk away? Victoria challenged. I needed you to prove yourself first, to know that my offer was based on merit, not just a deathbed promise. As the first light of the new year filtered through the window, Mark made his decision. He would accept Victoria's offer, not just the job, but the chance to open his heart again. 6 months later, Mark stood on a different rooftop, the one of his and Emma's new home, watching his daughter use her telescope while Victoria pointed out constellations. His new position had transformed their lives, but it was Victoria's presence that had truly healed them. "Daddy. Victoria says we can visit the planetarium tomorrow," Emma called excitedly. Mark smiled, catching Victoria's eye. "Sounds perfect." Later, as Emma slept, Victoria joined Mark on the porch swing. "I have another proposition for you," she said, her voice uncharacteristically nervous. "Another promotion?" he teased. "A partnership." She took his hand. "Of a more personal nature." Under the same stars that had witnessed their New Year's meeting, Mark finally let go of his fear and embraced the future, one where he wasn't facing life's challenges alone anymore. If this story touched your heart, please hit that like button and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content that reminds us all that second chances and unexpected kindness can change lives. We'd love to know which country you're watching from. Drop it in the comments below.